So if you cast your mind just a short period of time ago, back to 2019, you would find Wales at the top of the IRB World Rankings, having just recently won a Six Nations. And since then, it's been a gradual decline down the rankings. We've slowly won less and less games in the Six Nations. The World Cup, we only got to the quarterfinal and got knocked out straight away. And then we got to the point now where the last two Six Nations, we've had 2 wooden spoons and we're ranked 12th in the world. So where has it all gone wrong? That is my question to you. Where do you think it has gone wrong? Because I've looked back and I think I found about 5 key reasons. You might agree or disagree. If I've missed one, let me know. But this is what I've gone with as my 5 main reasons why Wales are where we are. First of all, you have to cast your mind back even further to 2012, when Roger Lewis took the fateful decision to get rid of the National Academy. The academy that had brought so many of that golden generation through. You ask players like Jonathan Davis, George North, Alex Cuthbert, they all say this was key to the development of them from a young player and an aspiring athlete to the top of Welsh rugby, and we saw how good those guys ended up being British Lions and key to that period of success under Warren Gatland for Wales. Granted, the last couple of years of the National Academy weren't producing the same calibre of player that they were before with your halfpennies and stuff, but it was still crucial, and Roger Lewis decided to terminate it as part of a cost-saving exercise, and I think it's been to the detriment of Wales because we've never been creating that steady stream of young excellence since then. And carrying on from that point, talking about the golden generation, unfortunately, I think Warren Gatland stuck with them way too long and didn't bring these players through. Kind of understandable because, like I said, the quality wasn't necessarily coming through, but there wasn't a lot of experience being doled around in certain positions for certain players. There was sticking with the stalwarts, and fair enough, they were bringing us success, and the youngsters weren't really getting a chance to develop and cut their teeth at international level. And that's why when all of the golden generation started retiring, you looked underneath and no one had any caps because it had been absorbed and sucked up by the top players for so long. Building on from that then was the just neglect of the regions. There's no real way to put it other than neglect. The money gradually got less and less. Granted, the regions weren't blameless in all this, squandered money clearly. Their academies that they were in charge of weren't developing players the same as the National Academy was. Roger Lewis again went to war, and there was a civil war basically between the regions and the union, which just caused so much discontent and so much bad feelings between the two entities that have to have a really good working relationship, and they were just butting heads and basically enemies for such a long period of time. And I mean, we're still kind of in that place, aren't we? And then we were kind of on like a pretty slow gradual decline, and then COVID hit and bang, that really kicked us in the teeth. Literally everyone in world rugby felt this. It seems like we felt it a bit more acutely in Wales for whatever reason that is, a bit more finely balanced on where the money was coming from, how the funding was going through, and the COVID really shutting down everything really put a lot of pressure on the union, who in turn put it on the regions with the COVID loans and then trying to pay those back, and the burden of that was just absolutely detrimental to the regions. Again, another thing where the unions have kind of neglected the regions, put the burden on them when it was really a WRU loan. They spread it out amongst the regions and kind of said, you guys have to pay with that. And that is something that still rattled on now until this new PRA, which only got signed by the two teams, was finally kind of sorting that issue out. But that really did kill the club game, especially for Wales. But the main thing, and it all kind of comes under one big banner, is just the disjointed and at times amateur running of the game in Wales by the union. You can't really point the finger to blame much further than that. The waste of money that has seemingly happened in the game, when you look at the success Wales had during the first Gatland era, the amount of money that pulled in, not just in ticket sales, sponsorship, but also tournament prize money, and that money has seemed to have evaporated into absolutely nothing. And now we're in the place where we're just cost saving again and trying to cut money, and this is really kind of how we've ended up at the point where we're probably going to be cutting multiple, if not all, the regions and starting again. They had the disastrous constant stuff coming out about the sexism and the racism and constant scandal after scandal. Then we had the whole PRA thing where they couldn't get the players to sign and agree, and it was back and forth, and the players were going right up to the end of their contracts without knowing if they had a future, if they were going to get a job, whether the regions were going to exist. They threatened to go on strike before the England game. That wasn't that long ago, but easily forgotten about. That was a mess. How can a rugby player function when he doesn't know what's going to be happening from week to week? It just doesn't work. And again, that falls at the feet of the WRU. The most disappointing thing for me is just the general lack of accountability across the union. We've seen so many times where scandal after scandal has come out. Very little has changed. We felt like the last time Steve Phillips went that it was going to be a fresh start, and then you had the issue where they were trying to force the women's to sign a contract basically under duress and put in stipulations that they had to sign it under a time scale. And you think, oh, we're about to get to a point where finally it's run by some adults and some people who know what they're doing, and then we're back at square one where there's a scandal and there's a review, and it's just disheartening. So I think if you've not taken it from this video, then I really do think that the general issue of Welsh rugby is the WRU, and I'd like to know what you guys think of this one. Check out dragonsports.co.uk and follow the YouTube, and I will catch you on the next one.